My name is Ara Osterweil, and I'm a painter and writer, and I'm also a professor at McGill University. I teach film and cultural studies there in the English department. My paintings are inspired by landscape, but as you can see, in a very broad sense, because they're abstract paintings, very often my paintings respond to the landscapes that I'm surrounded by, but more often they respond to landscapes of the imagination. And so this exhibit is called Wanderlust because it sort of represents my longing to go all these other places and imagine different landscapes that I don't actually get to see. So the painting that I'm standing in front of is called Borealis, and I've often fantasized about seeing the northern lights, but so far I haven't made it there, but it hasn't stopped me from painting how I picture them to be. It's hard these days to make a living in the arts. There's always the kind of question you have to ask yourself, which is, can I survive if I don't do this? Can you survive emotionally and spiritually? And if the answer is no, then you don't really have a choice and you have to pursue it. But I'm sort of over the romantic idea that somebody can just be an artist and pay all their bills. So I've always had these two lives, and I think of Kafka. I'm not comparing myself to Kafka, but Kafka was an insurance salesman. A lot of artists have had two lives, and so if you find a job that you feel like is really meaningful and important, like I do about my job, then you're going to struggle to balance it, but you can support yourself. I'm not from a rich family, so I don't have any fantasy that I could just paint for a living, nor would I want to, because I actually feel like the tension between teaching and being public and talking to a lot of people helps keep painting in balance, which is very solitary and meditative and quite different, but I'm so glad that I have both because I just go from one to the other. So I guess my advice would be keep the elements of your life, your art, and your work in a really healthy, productive tension. I've been painting my whole life. There's a picture of me that I just brought back from my parents' home in New York, and it's me as a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old in 4th grade, and I'm at the sink washing my brushes, and I look very disheveled, and I saw that picture again after about 30 years, and I realized I feel just exactly like that person, and there's this great continuity between disheveled me at 7 years old washing my brushes and what I do every weekend in the studio. There was a period in my life where I sort of stopped painting between about 19 and 25 because I was so busy with school, with undergrad, and then getting my PhD at Berkeley, and I just couldn't find time for it. And when I always longed for it, I always missed it, and when I finally came back to it, I really struggled to get back into it. It was almost like I didn't remember how to hold a paintbrush. And a lot of my students talk to me and say, I don't have time to paint, and it's something I really miss. And I always say, find time to paint, because it took me 5 years to feel comfortable painting after I had stopped. And so now I feel like I'm where I would have been at 27 if I hadn't stopped, but I'm 37, so that's what happens when you take time away. When I was in high school, I painted figures like a lot of people did, and then when I was in in the beginning of college, while I was still painting, I was painting figures, and when I went back to painting, I had totally switched my orientation towards abstraction. And one of the reasons, that I didn't paint between 19 and 25, one of the reasons was school, but the other reason was that I felt like I had run out of subjects to paint. Like I never could think about what to paint, and it seemed sort of odd to be painting people that were important to me or not important to me. I couldn't imagine anybody wanting a painting like this in their house, and of course that's not true. There are great realistic portrait painters, but abstraction solved the problem of what to paint, because all I had to think of was a color that I wanted to work with, whether I wanted to work with pink or whether I wanted to paint this size. I had to make different kinds of decisions, not about what to represent. And so since then I've been working in abstraction, and the the style has evolved a lot. So the recent show is a collection of stain paintings that I did, and that's a very different way of using acrylic paint that involves a lot of sort of making the paint very wet and pouring large quantities of water on the painting. That's different, but sort of where my heart is at the moment. As a painter, I have a million painters that I'm inspired by. I sort of spend these long, intimate sessions looking at paintings. One favorite painter of mine is Morris Louis, but there have been many, many others. For me, the people who inspire me right now, though, are not necessarily painters. They're people who keep their lives in balance, people who manage to live a creative life and take care of their families and do all of these different things. And whenever I meet somebody like that, I'm incredibly inspired and I want to know their secret, and I feel very kindred. So very often it's just my friends who can balance the demands of art and life, who are inspiring to me and the kind of people I like to be around.